reseller ninjas. Welcome to episode number 122 of eBay the Right Way. My guest today is Nicole, who specializes in fragrance and empty perfume bottles. And she sells other things too. Now, be forewarned, there are cat and a puppy sound effects in this episode. People have freaked out a little before when I throw in dog and cat sound effects when they are driving and listening to this podcast. And you might think your pet is a stowaway in your vehicle. People have said, yeah, that cat sound came on and I was looking around my car for my cat. I thought she jumped in. So listeners have emailed me saying they actually pulled off the road to check their vehicle thinking their pet hitched a ride. So this is not a catastrophe, just a sound effect. Okay, enough puppy and kitten sound effect talk. Let's hear from Nicole.
Hello, listeners, and welcome back. Today I have Nicole, and where are you located?
I'm in Tracy, California.
Which is near what?
It is about an hour outside of the Bay Area, Silicon Valley, Palo Alto, where all the technology is. Yeah.
So a very expensive part of California.
Yes, that's why I moved here. I was living in Palo Alto.
Okay. And you kind of came to me in a roundabout way. I got an email from your husband who bragged about how hard you've been working on your eBay and that you would be a good candidate for the podcast, but that you were a little shy and might have to be talked into it.
Yeah.
So
sounds about right.
He kind of went behind your back and I was like, sure, I'll reach out to her. And I think you had just bought my book. So I was like, I know her, and you post on the Facebook group. And so sure. But did he have to talk you into it, or were you okay?
Yes. And I would have never thought he would have did something like that, but he's listened to enough of the podcast with me when we're driving. So I guess he thought he needed to be sneaky and do that. Then he did have to talk me into it. Yeah.
Well, we're here now, and you'll find out that it's just very easy. It's two people talking about eBay, just like we're sitting at a coffee shop or something. So I wish I could actually do that with all my guests.
Yeah, I'm sure.
It's like I have a lot of friends, but a lot of them I've never met in person. So, but we have that common thread of a passion for eBay. So that's all that matters. So
that's right.
Let's start off with what brought you to eBay. What was the thing that pushed you into trying it?
Well, a long time ago, over 20 years ago, a cousin of mine was telling me about this place called eBay. He said it's like a garage sale online. I'm like, what? A garage sale online? And computers were just getting more into homes at that point. Not everybody had a computer at home. I had gotten one from him. He was a little tech genius, so he helped me get that going. And so I got nosy and poked around. He said, yeah, you can probably find some of your perfume bottles that you collect on there. And that really got me going because I was into collecting the miniature perfume bottles. And then I was fascinated and found, yes, people were selling them, started to buy some. And then I saw that people were selling lots of them, but I only wanted some of the bottles in there. So I thought, well, maybe I can just resell the ones I don't want, keep the ones I do want, and I'll end up with my collection virtually for free. And it started to work. So I was pretty excited about that. From that point forward, I sold mostly from buying lots and then getting rid of the ones I didn't want. It was fun for me. It was a hobby. It wasn't anything I took real serious, but it was really fascinating that I could do something like that. And at some point I started buying things to resell, mainly the perfume, especially the miniatures, because it was a big thing at the time. And I kept going. Mostly it has been a hobby until the last 8 years. I've worked off and on in between, so I didn't always get to do it. There'd be big breaks in a year time sometimes. But that's really what brought me in, the curiosity of a garage sale online.
So I did see you post the was it the Estee Lauder cinnamon scent something? Tell me about
Yeah,
that.
the solid perfume.
That was at the top of my Facebook for like 2 days.
Oh,
Because it was on my business page.
okay.
And so I was like, to talk to her in a few days, and you just sold this great thing. So what exactly was it?
Solid perfume. So Estee Lauder made a big line of solid perfumes, and they still do. They're just, I don't think the new ones are as desired, but there's probably a few that are pretty popular. The older ones are. Cinnabar is one of their older scents. They have a new version of it, but it doesn't smell as good as the old one. So I went to an estate sale and I found a whole lot of these. They had them individually priced, some up to 30, 40, 50 bucks each. They were getting ready to close, and I thought, why not ask? So I asked, how much for all of them? And the guy was really anxious to move everything because this was one of the got to get everything out of here. So he said, if you can bring cash, I'll sell them to you for, X amount of dollars. And I bargained a little bit more. And he said, okay, can you go get the cash? And I said, yep, I'll go get it and I'll be right back. So did that and came home with a great lot. Some were needing to be emptied because they smelled funny. Others were already empty, and some of them were just not used at all. And they were just needing to be wiped out on the outside because they were dusty from sitting on somebody's shelf as a collectible.
And so it was a cat.
Yes.
Okay. It looked just like a little ceramic figurine, and I guess it had a hinge top and it opened. And so solid perfume, is it like a waxy substance?
Yeah, it's kind of waxy. It has the scent. I think there are some cream ones that are similar, but I think the originals were the waxy kind of substance, and they would last a long time. All you would need is just a little dab on your wrist, and it would hold for some reason much longer than regular perfume.
Yeah, I remember Avon sold some of that over the years. I think I mentioned that my mom sold Avon, like everybody's mom sold Avon.
Avon calling.
And then I sold it to my friends at school, and I didn't get paid. I just got free products. But I do remember something like that. Or it might have been like a roll on, like in a little container, like lip gloss, and you roll.
Okay. Yep.
So yeah, all kinds of different varieties over time. But so how much did you pay for that one little item that was the cat?
Well, when you break down the total price, I think I had like $7 and some odd cents in each item. Since they gave me such a good deal, I think they knew they weren't going to be able to sell them. So they said, okay, let's get them out.
And then you sold it for over $100, right?
Yes. And I believe it's a collector. There are people who actually collect just the boxes. And that particular one, there was about maybe 4 or 5, maybe there was even more that they made that have that same color and look, but different animals.
Yeah, that was a great sale.
Yes, it was. I was happy.
Unique looking item. It's like, yeah, that's definitely desired by a collector. So.
And it's definitely even nicer in person. It's just really well done. And they don't make them like that anymore. So yeah.
Right.
Small, easy to store.
So you would say you specialize in fragrances?
Yes, because that's where my whole journey started. It was because of my collecting, because of my desire to add to my collection. And, for a good 23 years, I've just been learning more and more and more. And I've even watched some things be really high in value, which are not worth anything now. So I think it's a generational thing. People are, hate to say it, but they're dying off. And so the popular older fragrances aren't as popular now because it's a whole new few generations that are looking for other things.
Right. Okay. And I remember selling some Estee Lauder I found at an estate sale probably like 10 years ago. And there was an oil. Are you familiar with that?
Yeah, I think anything that's an oil is usually much higher in value than the perfume. It's
Yeah.
rare.
I think I got it I bought a whole bunch of health and beauty stuff at this estate sale. So maybe I paid $5 for it, and it sold for like $75, $80. And it was in the box and everything. It wasn't brand new, but whoever owned it stored it very carefully. So, okay. Well, wow. We can pick your brain about that. I didn't realize you were a specialist. Now I know the empty bottles also sell.
Yeah.
So can you talk about that market for people that don't realize that, yes, you can just sell the bottle?
Yes. So there's a few different markets for that. There's people who like to collect only empty bottles, and maybe that's because it's more affordable or it's more desirable for them. They don't want to deal with the fragrance. Maybe they even have allergies to the fragrance. But there are people I've come across in my collecting that they just want the empties, and that's old or new. They just like the pretty sparkly bottles. And then there's the collectors that go for the empties because they're valuable, whether they had the perfume in it or not, the antique or the vintage. So in the beginning, I used to throw the empty ones away when I find them because I didn't think there was a market for it, because it's still learning, right? And then I realized, wait a minute, people are selling these. What am I doing? There's value to almost everything.
I know there's just no end to what sells. And it's just, I would love to talk to more collectors or have them on the podcast so that we can get into their brain. Like, what do you want and why do you want it? I like to know the why.
Yeah, I'm the same way sometimes. Sometimes I get people that actually tell me why they got it. And then sometimes I just wonder, and I never ask, so why are you buying this? Because I feel like I'm being invasive, but it's interesting. I mean, people look at me and say, well, why do you collect that stuff? Well, they're cute, the little bottles. So I moved on from in my own collection of perfume from miniatures to full size to antique. Your taste changes over time, right? So I would actually, and I still do, pull from my collection. Okay, I'm done with this. I want to get other stuff now. And so I'll start selling some of that too.
Right. Do you remember an empty that sold for a lot of money?
Off the top of my head, I would have to say it was probably a Guerlain, and it was one of, I don't even know if I could pronounce it correctly, Le Huer Blue, something like that. And it was mostly because of the label, and it was a Lalique bottle. So
Lalique, right.
Yeah, that was about 15 years ago. That probably went at the time for about $100, which was a lot then. It would probably go for a lot more now.
That's great. And was it just like on its own, or was it in a grab bag, or?
I got it off a shelf in an antique store. So I used to have really good luck finding stuff to resell in antique stores. It's not as much anymore, but it depends on where I am.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So, yeah, Lalique is high dollar. I think I've told this story before, but I was exploring those grab bags at thrift stores, and sometimes you can kind of see what's in there, and sometimes it's a gamble. But there was a grab bag full of all this random stuff, and what I saw to sell was a set of ceramic measuring cups. It was some fancy brand, I can't remember, like Lennox or something like that. I was like, oh, these are cute. And that's really all I could see. I knew there were other things in there. So I got it home and started going through everything. And there was this little, maybe 3-inch glass red lion, like this little glass figurine. I was like, what is this? So get the magnifying glass, and it was Lalique. It was just a figurine, and it sold for around $100. It's the cover picture on one of my sales update videos. Like, I'll have to put that at the end.
Oh, okay.
Look that up and put it at the end. But it wasn't a perfume bottle, but it was just a little solid thing. And I think the whole grab bag cost like $3. So, that
was a good score.
It was less than $1. So those miniature perfume bottles, fragrance bottles, they could be hidden all kinds of places.
Right.
I've found them in coat pockets, and just, the little hidden zipper pouch inside a handbag, and people just put stuff everywhere. And I do remember selling a little, I think it was Vera Wang. It was a tiny, maybe not even half an inch tall thing that I got for 50 cents. It was mixed in with the party supplies and all the office supplies at the thrift store.
Okay.
And so it was 50 cents, and I sold it for over $50.
Good score.
Yeah, it's just like I'm on the lookout for those things all the time, because it doesn't have to be a big bottle. It can be anything. It can be anything.
Yeah. A lot of people like the discontinued stuff. That's the stuff that drives money too, is they don't make it anymore. And the only way they're going to find it is being resold from somebody else. So,
or like you said, they change the formula and it smells different.
Yeah. Most, I would say probably all, except for a few companies that claim they're doing all natural, it's all synthetic now. That's why a lot of people, especially the older, my age and older, will say, no, I want the original because that was made with more natural. Maybe at some point they threw in a few synthetics, but synthetics is cheaper for them to use to produce perfumes. And that's why so many people are allergic to them now. That's my theory. There's no probably backup on that, but enough people have told me I can't be around the new stuff anymore. And I'm like, okay, well, I know those are all mostly synthetic chemicals. So
yeah, and some of them are so strong. Like you can just be near a person in public and you're like, oh gosh, you put on too much. I'm getting a headache, like, and I wonder if you just have to use less of the synthetic, because
probably, I think people can't smell their own perfume sometimes because they're so used to it. I mean, case in point, my mom would spray so much on her. I can't smell it. I'm like, Mom, you're a walking cloud. Slow down. It's too much. I can smell it. Trust me. So
you're like the opposite of Pigpen on the Peanuts. Instead of a dust cloud, it's just a perfume cloud.
Yeah.
Do you ever sell Chanel No. 5?
Yes, when I come across it. Definitely.
Yep. There was
a big seller
thing going around on the wedding websites, and I'm sure they probably still do that, but using the bottles as not really a centerpiece, but on a table at the reception with a few flowers, and they were using perfume bottles. So that kind of drove the empty bottle market, like even if you weren't a collector, because kind of anything goes at weddings now.
For decor. Yeah, they do pretty neat with weddings nowadays. I'm impressed. They're much more creative. A lot of the ladies are doing their own decorating because they can find ideas on Etsy and Pinterest, whatever it is. It's like, I want to do that, and they recreate it, and I think it's pretty neat.
Oh yeah, there's no shortage of ideas out there. It's like deciding which one you want to do.
Right.
But the pictures I remember were just very tasteful. These pretty bottles with 2 or 3 flowers, roses, or whatever the bride chose. But so that's something to think about. And you can always try it. If it doesn't sell, then
right.
Okay. It's an empty bottle. So let's talk about some of your other sales.
Okay. Yeah, like I said, I focused on perfume for so long and then realized I better evolve because there's other stuff out there. I'd see what would sell on eBay. And so it was just a matter of learning. So I sell vintage pottery. I do have a lot of vintage china and dish sets. They don't move very fast. Most that came from a family member who collected for most of his life, and he needed to get rid of stuff. So he asked me to help him move it. It's a slow moving thing, but I'm still working on it. And every once in a while something will sell. So I do a lot of figurines, vintage ceramic figurines. Wow, what else? Native American pottery. It's a little bit slower moving now unless you have something really special and highly valuable. But I also started collecting that because I liked it so much. What else? Yearbooks. I love selling yearbooks. I love finding yearbooks and selling them. I'm fascinated by just the different styles and eras I can see. And that's been a good one. So yearbooks are really great to resell, old, new. I sell just about anything. If it's going to bring me profit, I'll sell it. I learned quickly I don't like selling really large, big things because they're hard to find packaging for. They're a pain to package, but I have sold some big things. So I try to stick with manageable sizes for me.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I'll buy stuff and I bring it home and I'm like, why did I do that? I have to package that and ship it and find a awkward shaped box for it to make a box.
Well, it's interesting to see the evolution from when people just start and they realize they can pretty much make money on anything. And you don't want to leave anything behind because, I could sell that. I could sell that. And then as you get more confident in your selling and get more experience, you start saying, do I want to sell that? Do I want to list that thing? Do I want to ship that thing? And you can start narrowing down your products because it takes the same amount of time to list most items, and it's like, yeah, but then I'm going to have to ship that printer. Do I really want to do that? And some people have no problem. They love it. That's fun for them. Me, I'm like, the faster I can ship it and get it out the door, the better, because then I can work on my other stuff.
Right.
So, can you talk about some specific sales of particular items and where you got them and how much you paid and that kind of thing?
Okay. So one that really surprised me, this was when I was really starting to ramp up. Okay, I'm no longer going to look at eBay as a hobby. I'm going to turn it into a business. So it was about 7 or 8 years ago. I was in the thrift store near my house, always looking at the art because I also wanted to get art for my house and I can't afford the stuff that's out there brand new. So I'm always checking. And that's when I lived in Palo Alto. So the store was pretty good. The stuff that came in, a little bit more expensive.
That behind you are some very interesting frames. I don't know if they're drawings or lithographs. I see a black and white photo of what looks like a gondola in Venice and the Victorian lady with a big leg of mutton sleeves. Some really cool looking stuff behind you. So
all through a store. Thank you.
It seems that you're into the art world.
I love art, and that can be more than just, a print or a painting. It's glass, it's, anything. So yeah, I bought a lot of these with the intention to sell, but I end up liking them or I'm stuck because I can't find a box for them yet. So slowly I've sold some pieces, but a lot of them I just hang up because I don't have anywhere else to put them. I figure, so I've got my office walls covered. The rest of the house is the real artwork that we're keeping that I really like, but I also picked up at thrift stores. So when I was in the thrift store for this one item, I walked by it a few times and it caught my eye and I picked it up, looked at it. It was a flag, little parade flag. And I'm like, this is different. I didn't pay a lot of attention in school. So historically, I wasn't really up to date, but I knew it was older and I flipped it over. I'm like, wow, this was actually, somebody paid to frame this. There was a sticker for the framing store in Colorado. I'm like, well, this is really good framing. So this must have meant something to someone. So I snapped a picture and sent it to my husband. I said, what do you think? He's like, not for me. Because he thought I was talking about, for our wall. I go, no, what do you think about the flag's different? He's like, I don't know. You probably know better than me. So, and he's doing his thing. And so I said, all right, fine. Put it in my cart and walked around the store for a while. Went back and forth about should I buy it or not. And I finally decided, I think I paid about $7.99. I'm going to buy it, go home, try to learn about it. If anything, maybe I'll sell it for $20 if it's not really highly valuable. So I got it home, did a little bit of research. It was a 38-star parade flag. And after I looked it up, I realized, this is from when Colorado became a state. So I thought maybe I'll really get about $50 for this. This is great. So I put it up for auction and got a few bids right away. And then somebody messaged me and said, whatever you do, don't take any lowball offers. Let this ride all the way out. People are going to try to get this from you before the auction ends. it will sell for high value if you leave it. So the auction ended for $910, and it blew my mind. I was like, wow, people are serious. So I learned there's collectors of the old flags, and it's not necessarily what I thought. It's not the big flags, like the ones that would be on a flagpole, because most people don't have space on their walls to hang those. So they go after the old parade flags, what would have been on a stick, and a kid would be waving it around at some point, especially the old ones. So I guess that's why this one went, because it's small enough. It was already framed beautifully, and apparently it's not easy to find. So that was my first big mind blow. Like, wow, I almost left this behind.
That is excellent information. I never would have thought about people displaying them inside their home.
Yes.
And they don't want those giant ones that are out in the grocery store parking lot and the bank and, all those giant flags. And that would be really hard to photograph if it was so big like that.
Exactly. So ever since then, I've always kept my eye out for another one. But of course, I haven't found one. But I thought, wow, that was a golden nugget for me. That was just fabulous. So
that is outstanding. Excellent. Yeah. Very good.
And, some other things were about 3 years ago, before my mom passed, she was starting to go through she had a small amount of stuff. She was always a keeper of things, but she'd been downsizing, and she was giving me things, and she said, see if you could sell these. I'm like, all right, and then I'll give you the money, Mom. She's like, nope, you keep the money. I said, nope, this is your stuff, so we'll split it, we'll figure something out. So there were some things, my mom always thought everything had value if it was old, and I had to break it to her, not everything is valuable just because it's old. But what there was some Disneyland 1950s squeaker postcards in there, and I was fascinated by those because I'd never seen them, and they were pristine, almost like brand new. They were never sent. They were purchased and probably put away and never used. So I started looking those up, found some online that had sold, and they both sold. One of them sold for $225 and another for $250. So that was also a surprise. I'm like, wow, people actually want old postcards and these squeaker postcards, which I'd never even heard of before.
What is that?
Right in the middle of the postcard, it's a little puffier, and just like a toy or a dog toy, you squeeze it and it would squeak. And apparently because the squeaker still worked and it was never written on and the card was pristine, the Disney collectors went after it. It was a pretty big deal. Yeah, I was surprised. I'm like, for a postcard, who would have thought?
Well, I wonder how annoying that was for people within the Postal Service when someone actually wrote on it and mailed it, and it's like squeaking the whole way.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm surprised
at the squeaker.
And in the mail tub, and it's like, gosh, what is in there?
Yeah, exactly.
That's funny. I did not know they made such a thing.
Yeah, so I've always kept my eye out for those two, but I have a feeling that the collectors pretty much have almost all of them. And if I ever find anything like that, it will be a mistake that somebody's getting rid of it and has no clue about the Disney fans in general, and that it's highly valuable. So,
but you just don't know. I mean, if you think of the hundreds of millions of homes and what's in their attic, what's in their basement that's been packed up, or in the bottom of the desk drawer that desk has been sitting there for 30 years, and you just don't know what is packed away that could resurface at an estate sale, a garage sale, or if you private pick somebody's house or whatever you're doing. Don't give up hope on that, because people find these rare things all the time. Who was it? Cassie is it Illinois, that was talking, she lived with her grandmother, and she was talking about, slowly going through her grandma's things, and she found some kind of Disney ticket or brochure or something like that sold for a lot of money, and it had been in that house for like 50 years.
Wow.
So you just don't know what's going to be unearthed and appear.
That's right. That's right. Another time we were driving, we were in the Bay Area, and we were in Los Altos, and I forget where we were going, my husband and I, and right on the side of the road outside. It was an affluent neighborhood. It was a box that said free, and there was some furniture pieces. So I'm like, stop. Pulls over, and he's like, I don't think the furniture is going to fit. And I said, why? No, I don't think so either. Even though it's really old and nice wooden piece table. But what caught my eye was in a box were these, I knew it was military something, and they end up being field phones from World War II.
Oh.
Not in the best shape, the phones themselves, but not terrible. And the cases were on them, the canvas cases, and they were free. So I'm like, well, I'm taking these. I'm going to learn about these and figure it out. So they're heavy and big, but surprisingly, people still want them. So I sold one for 75 and another for 125. Collectors. One moved right away. The other one took about 8 months. So you never know what you're going to find either. I mean, anytime I see free, I stop and look. Or if it's obvious they've put it out, I stop and look. I mean,
I think you're in the eBay tribe, the eBay reseller tribe. Yeah. Free just, sets off alarm bells. Wait, what?
Yeah, exactly.
So those field phones, was it like a canvas bag with a phone in it?
A canvas bag with a big box. I can't believe they had to carry these things around, a big, heavy box. And then, looked like our old telephones from home attached to it. Mm-hmm. Some of them, the backs were missing on one. The wiring was bad. So, I made sure I photographed very well, described everything that I saw wrong with it. And either they just collected them or somebody knew how to fix them. I don't know, but I know war stuff sometimes from the military can sell.
Oh, yeah. It doesn't have to work. It doesn't have to be in pristine condition. People just like to collect that stuff.
Yeah.
So that is a neat find.
It's been fun learning about different things. I'm glad that I branched out and decided I could get out of my comfort zone. I can't just sell perfumes forever, because what happens when that's not a thing anymore? Sometimes people have stuff that they're getting rid of. Of course, they know I sell, hey, do you want this? And a few times it's kind of like, can you sell this for me? I don't like to do that. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of explaining. And so a lot of times they'll just give it to me. So that's good. I've had a few people ask me if I would sell for them, and I've tried it. Like I did stuff for my mom, but she didn't even want anything. So one of my mom's friends was going through all their stuff, and they had worked at HP for their whole life. They retired from there. So I got a lot of HP stuff, but the best thing, which I had no clue was even worth anything, but I thought, well, this is different. It was a package of silicon sapphire HP wafers. Apparently they were doing tests at the time, so they're all slightly different for the little silicone chip. They were putting things on and running tests to see which one would hold up for whatever it was they were going to do with it. And at the end, when they had all these leftover pieces that they weren't going to do anything with because they were testers, they told the employees, sure, you can take them if you want. And they kind of look like little CDs.
Mm-hmm.
And so they had a box of 30 of these. She's like, you think these will sell? I'm like, well, I might as well check. It's HP. There's also people who collect those too. And so I put them up. Wasn't sure what to sell them for. This nice gentleman messaged me and told me he was part of a collectors club who everything HP, including the tech stuff, the early tech stuff. And he told me how I could look for some information on it with a really strong magnifier. And he said, if you have this or that on it, I forget what it is, then it's valuable and it'll sell. So I found the information. It wasn't quite the one that he had mentioned, but I thought, what the heck, I'm going to take a chance. And I listed it, and it sold for $400. So people are definitely collectors of all things.
Well, and nostalgia comes in many ways. It doesn't just have to be something pretty or valuable. It can, it's because it reminds you of an earlier time, maybe a happier time, or, when you're a young adult, a teenager. Those are the things that are so nostalgic. The concert tickets and the concert t-shirts, but it can just be computer stuff like, oh, here's this old Apple computer manual. And, I remember when those came out and how much that industry changed and how quickly it changed with all the new and different things that were coming on the market and being invented and all that stuff. So I think sometimes we just have to get out of our own heads of like, just because I don't have an affinity for this item or I'm not emotionally attached doesn't mean somebody else won't be.
That's right.
It can be anything. Oh, my mother had that Tupperware bowl, or we had this those Keurig trays, the mid-century modern stuff. We had these in our house, and it's all about that. So I think you're smart to just put these things out there. And $400 for an old computer thingy, basically.
That was free. So
yeah, that was free.
That's always the best. Free is the best. But yeah, I have a lot of fun with it. I've always said, even when I was working full time and doing this, still kind of as a hobby, but I'd ramp it up for Q4 because I knew it was a good time to sell. I like doing this. I like the whole. Of course, I love the shopping part. I love the treasure hunt. I like to make extra money. And I like the customer service part, even when I've had the few customers that maybe weren't so nice. I like the packaging, the shipping. I've just learned what I don't like about packaging and shipping certain things, but I do. It's like, I love doing this. So this is the job that I love.
Do you also work like a regular job in addition?
I do. I currently work I've been there for about a year and a half as an admin assistant. It's a remote job. It's for a Pilates studio that I actually used to go to when I lived in Palo Alto. So during the pandemic, once they got back on their feet, they were hiring to replace the receptionist that they had to let go. And it was an offer for a remote job, part-time, just a few hours a day. And I thought, what the heck, I'll apply because I can do that because I'm still doing my eBay stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And it worked out and I got hired on. And so I do that job in the morning. Sometimes it goes longer than just a few hours a day. It's pretty flexible, but it works with my business, what I'm doing. And so I like that.
So you're like the front desk person at the Pilates studio?
Right. But I'm basically, that's what they used me to replace the receptionist. I was called a virtual assistant at first. And then after a while, I told them that I believe you should change me to maybe an admin assistant because I'm not virtual. To me sounds like I'm not a real person, like I'm AI.
Right.
And I do everything that she needs me to do. And I do the customer service, basically the emails, the collecting, the billing, anything that they need, the scheduling. So we did change the title to admin assistant and it's more appropriate, but I really enjoy it there too.
Yeah, that sounds like kind of a fun job. You get to be around people, you get to be in the fitness world. That's important. Like, who are your clients coming in? So
yes,
like everybody coming in either loves Pilates or they fear what will happen if they don't come and work out.
Yeah.
There's two kinds of people at a health club. The ones that love to be there and the ones that are like, oh, I better go work out or this might happen.
Yeah.
So that sounds good. And so then you do your eBay stuff in the afternoon.
Yes.
Okay. All right. You have any more sales you want to talk about?
Well, those are all that I took notes for. Well, let me see. About a year ago, I was in a thrift store and I grabbed the Dr. Seuss book off the shelf. That was about the time when all the craze was going with his books, right?
Right. They were banning
before they
books.
blocked you from being able to sell them.
Yep.
And I grabbed this one book. It was like $2.95. I'm like, Hooper Humperdinck. I didn't know anything about it. I thought it was kind of a funny title. And I thought I knew all the Dr. Seuss books because I would read them to my kids. So I grabbed it and I put it up for sale. And then I did research after I put it up for sale. It hadn't sold yet. So I went in and changed the price. It sold for $125. So that surprised me too, because I didn't find anything at the time to compare it to that particular book, but maybe it was the year of it. It was in really good condition too. So, and after that, they blocked the Dr. Seuss book sales for some of those titles.
So just some of them are blocked or not allowed.
Well, yeah, because they pulled those from the shelves. Those are the ones that people were able to sell very quickly after they pulled them from
Right. I remember
printing.
that. Yeah. That was a very short period of time where you could make money if you had
Right.
those specific books. Yeah, I remember that. That was a crazy time, just things getting banned and statues getting pulled down.
I
And
know.
just like, what are they going to do next? You
Yeah,
know?
what else are we going to be banned for?
So anyway, back to your stuff. So you have a store. How many things do you have in your store about?
I have right now, I think 939 items.
Okay.
And it wasn't always like that. I always hovered below 100 for my hobbyist years. I
Mhm.
didn't see a need to have that much. And then when I decided to ramp up, I started setting goals. Okay, I'm going to get to 100. I'm going to get to 200. I'm going to get to 300. And it just kept going. So steadily, I've never reached 1,000. I hover in the 900s because sometimes I'll pull stuff that's old and get rid of it, or stuff will sell as I'm listing. So even though I'm listing more, stuff is moving out, which I'm fine with. So I think I'd like to have more, but I'm not going to push too hard because I find, again, it's like shoveling the sidewalk when it's snowing. As I'm listing more to get higher, stuff is selling, and I'm fine with that. So I'm like, okay,
That's a
gonna
great
algorithm away.
analogy.
Yeah.
So are you across many different categories now?
Yes. Yeah.
What is
I will sell anything if it's legal, obviously on eBay, and that it's easy to ship and store. I don't like everything. Like, I struggle with clothes, but I do have some vintage clothes, and I have dabbled here and there with things that I thought, okay, this will bring some money, or somebody's given me something. And I just don't like clothes because they're hard to photograph for me. So
Yeah, that's the downside. But they're
I
just
don't
so
have
plentiful.
anything. Yeah, I don't have like a mannequin or anything nice to do it on. So my stuff usually goes on a hanger in front of a white door, or I spread it out on my bedspread after the bed is made. So, but
Mhm.
it's very few pieces. But yeah, I mean, I have a lot of stuff in my store as far as different categories.
Yeah, I quit using the mannequin a few years ago because with the popularity of Poshmark, most everything is flat lay there.
Oh, is it? Okay.
And so a lot of those people also sell on eBay. So they do their pictures the same way. And I just felt like it didn't really affect my sales because, back in the day, it's like, oh, you got to have it on a mannequin so people can see how it fits and all of that. But that shifted, and it does take longer to put items on a mannequin and fit them and all, where
True.
if you just hang it on a hook on the wall. And now we have all these background removal tools. So it doesn't even matter what your background is.
Yeah.
I remove it anyway. And so, yeah, people were horrified. They're like, you don't use a mannequin anymore. Well, I have the half torso that's, just the front. And I use that for swimwear because you kind of have to display swimwear so you could see what's going on there. But yeah, I shifted to flat lay and just hanging on the wall. And it is much faster for photographing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, definitely. But, flat lay means you got to have a way to do it. And it's a little taxing on your back if you're bending over and stuff like that. But you just got to figure out what works for you. And I sell about the same amount of stuff not using a mannequin as I did using one. So
that's good. That's good. At least you're spending a little bit less time with it, getting it ready.
That's my 2 cents on the evolution of photographing clothing. Because it's just so plentiful. It's everywhere. I just can't not do it.
Yeah, it is very plentiful. Goodwill has about 75% clothes, and seems like most of their stores now, which is disappointing for me. But I'm like, well, somebody out there likes this, so okay.
What are most of your items? Like, what category are they in?
Geez, I don't really take a look at that. I would say my vast majority is probably fragrance or the collectibles, vanity, perfume, shaving. And after that, probably yearbooks is ramping up a lot because I probably have about 40 of them.
Really?
Yeah. I picked
Where are
those up
you
anytime.
finding? You're just going to say where you're finding them.
Anytime I can find them at estate sales or thrift stores for under $5, I'll pick them up. But I always shoot for the lower price because that's better. But people buy them. Sometimes they go really fast and sometimes they sit for a long time. But eventually it's just that person is looking for it, whether they went there or their parent did or their grandparent did, or somebody. I always check now to make sure there wasn't somebody famous and notable who went to a specific high school, so I don't let it go for too low of a price because I realize that drives some purchases too. They're looking for somebody in there that wasn't necessarily someone they knew.
Mm-hmm.
Probably my other category would be the collectibles because I do have a lot of figurines and different types of stuff like that. For a long time, it was holiday stuff. Like I did a lot of Hallmark keepsake and Department 56.
Mm-hmm.
I got tired of doing it. I had a big haul for about the last 5 years, and I think I sold everything that was worth it to me. I've also shifted. I would sell anything if I could double my money before. Anything even, down to $10. And in the last year or two, after listening to a lot of your podcasts, I decided, not that there's anything wrong with it, but for me, I'm spending too much time sourcing, photographing, listing, packing, and shipping for a $10 item.
Mm-hmm.
Even if it's free, I still kind of question after the fees come off, what am I actually left with? Am I making $5 off of this? So my goal has been to slowly whittle down my under $20 items and focus on $20 and preferably $25 and above. Because I feel like with my time, everything that goes into it, fees, taxes I'm going to pay, I got to come out with a little bit more than $5 for it. So
right. I know, but it's so hard to not do it when this is a thing you can sell.
Right. And that is my mindset. My kids make fun of me because they're like, Mom, because I'll go somewhere and I wonder how much that is worth. Come on, that's somebody's house. Don't do that. But my mind is always going, I wonder what that is. I wonder how much that's worth. Are you getting rid of that?
Yeah, I do that all the time. I'll be at a friend's house and I'm like, hey, I'll give you $20 for that, whatever.
See, I haven't tried that. I'm just like, do you know that's valuable?
You'll see things that other people have sold. Like those Danbury mint Christmas trees with the dogs on them. That's been on my radar for over 10 years and I've never seen one anywhere, but doesn't mean I won't. It just means I haven't. They're out there because people sell them all the time and they can go for $200 to $300 or more. And is it a nightmare to ship? Not really. Just wrap it in a bunch of bubble wrap and double box it and you're good. But it is hard to draw that line on nope, not doing that. And I'll just be I'll be somewhere, thrift store or whatever, and I'll just have this conversation with myself like, yeah, that sells for a lot, but do I really want to do it? Do I really want to ship that? And I just tend to gravitate towards the smalls for some reason.
They're easier.
Well, they can be just as valuable too.
Yes. They're easier to store. They're easier to find a box for. Even if it's a delicate small, they're easier to pad it well and still not kill yourself doing it,
Right. And Christmas ornaments have surprised me. I've got into that this year because when I moved to Greenville, I started seeing them everywhere and I never saw them in Atlanta. It was very rare to see anything good. And, some of those, I call them those dumb Hallmark satin ball ornaments. Oh, yeah. They're plastic. They're covered in satin and they have a little strip of plastic around the middle. And it's like, Charlie Brown, 1979, $80. And it's not even made of anything
wild,
valuable. Yeah, it's not made of silver or gold or it's not Lennox or those higher end brands that, it's not Yadro and Lalique and all those expensive things. It's just because it's nostalgic for somebody.
Right.
and it's not being made anymore, and it's old.
And you know what? A lot of the old is coming back in. I volunteer at a thrift store one day a week in town. It's a nonprofit. It's not the Goodwill. It's an independent place. It's a true nonprofit.
Mhm.
And we have seen a huge influx of young people that come in. Some of them are resellers, which are easy for me to spot because I know what I do when I'm in there looking for things in different, stores, and that's fine. But a lot of them they're there because they want to decorate their home. They want to find the old clothes and they're wearing them.
Mhm.
It's kind of fun. And I think it's great because I'm also seeing them in the antique stores too, which tells me that there's going to be a shift. Antique stores were all starting to fade away for a while because they lost interest with the generations were dying out. A lot of stores were starting to close. And now we see the younger generation in there because they want the old stuff. They find value in it. They like it. And the styles are coming back again. So.
And I think it's just trendy for these younger people to like the old stuff. It's just a trend. Maybe it'll stick. I don't know. Hard to say, but I think some of these people that gravitate towards the older items, they like them because they're a conversation piece, when they have their friends over. Oh, let me show you this Charlie Brown thing from 1976.
Yeah.
Decades before they were born.
My mom had this.
Right. Yeah. We had this, my mom had this in her house growing up or whatever. And so, you've got the minimalist trend where it's like, don't have anything in your house, the 20 things you use. And then you've got the vintage trend where it could be anything. It can be anything old they like.
That's right.
That's a great observation. So anyway, well, we have almost been going an hour. Told you that would go by fast.
Did go by very quick.
So I have a new question for you because we talked about what I can ask you for the new question.
Yeah.
Obviously, you listen to my podcast, which I appreciate. And what other podcasts do you like?
Well, nothing to do with reselling, but I have been fascinated with cold case files. I started listening to it when I was doing a lot of driving to go to different places for sourcing.
Mm-hmm.
It's nice to throw on something to listen to. It's kind of fascinating to me, and I like to hear when they're solved.
Mm-hmm.
They're kind of sad though sometimes. Some of them are never solved, but I really like listening to that. So that's the one I've been listening to for the past 2 years.
Yeah, kind of a spinoff of true crime type stuff.
Right.
And, there is a show, I think it's called Cold Justice.
Okay.
With a retired DA that they open up these cold cases. And as it's interesting as time goes by, maybe people die, maybe situations change, but people come forward with information that they were afraid to give when the investigation started. So, it's 20 years later and the person they're afraid of is dead and gone. So now they can come forward. They don't have any fear. And then the advancements in DNA and all the technology of, they save all that evidence in warehouses. And
thank goodness they did.
Yeah. Knowing that technology has to catch up. So we need to save all this stuff. And it is fascinating that 50, 60 years later, they can solve these crimes. And sometimes the perpetrator is 80 years old and he has to go to jail.
Well, my theory is they deserved it. So I'm glad they finally got caught. They got to live their whole life not being caught. So I think that's why I kind of gravitate towards this too. I'm like, okay.
So it's just called Cold Case?
Cold Case Files.
I'm looking it up right now. I want to see it. Because there was a TV show. So I think this is based on that TV show because I used to watch this all the time on like A&E and
I think it is from something from A&E.
Investigation Channel Network, whatever that is. So yeah, I'm looking at it right now and it is A&E. cold case files, and yeah, they have a lot of them.
Yeah, they do.
I'm on board with you on that, because if I'm going to spend my time listening to something, reading something, I like for it to be a true story.
Right. Exactly.
Or, I mean, I know you can escape into fiction and that kind of thing, but I feel like I just gravitate towards true stories. So, anyway. Okay, well, we are going to wrap this up. Thank you so much for mustering up the courage to come on and talk.
Of course. Well, thank you for having me and asking me, even though it was my husband who pursued you to ask me.
Well, you were going to be on the list anyway, because I was watching your posts, and you post some pretty good sales. So I have a long list of people that
I bet.
I want to approach. And for the listeners, check your Facebook messages. It's called a chat request, because if I'm not friends with you on Facebook, that's where my message is going to go, is into that folder. And a lot of people don't even know it's there. So you may find a message from me and many other people that have messaged you in that. It's called chat requests. So anyway, just throwing that out there, because like, oh, I'd love to have her on, love to have him on. And I reach out and they never see the message because they don't trying to contact them. Anyway, so you could have all kinds of things in there. So
that's right.
Well, I'm glad your husband emailed me, and this was so easy and fun, and see, nothing to worry about.
Yeah, I had a good time. It was easy to talk.
Okay, great. Well, thanks again, and we'll look for you and your amazing sales on the group.
Thank you, Suzanne.
Thanks. Bye.
And thank you again, Nicole. I'm glad I could put your mind at ease about coming on the podcast. And like all the others before you, it was just two people chatting about their passion, reselling. And the Lalique glass item that I referred to in our conversation is the cover thumbnail on the July 2019 sales update video on YouTube if you want to see the actual item. It was a dragon, not a lion. I paid $1.50 for it and took an offer of $95 on an item I didn't even know I bought. Yeah, that was 4 years ago, and I still remember it, as you guys probably do too. We might not be able to remember what we had for dinner last night, but we remember those big and unusual and happy sales. On to today's trivia question. Since the topic centered on fragrances and perfume bottle collecting, what are the top 5 most valuable empty perfume bottles? And we're talking about the brands here, not a specific bottle. Here's some time to think it over. Okay, this data is from Terapeak using the keywords vintage empty perfume bottle in used condition. There is some overlap depending on size and condition, but the heavy hitters are Baccarat, which is known more for crystal and barware, but the brand straddles many different types of items and categories. Next is Lalique, Lalique, Christian Dior, Guerlain, and I don't know if I'm pronouncing this correctly, Schiaparelli. So there are some fun, cosmopolitan, fancy words for you. All right, that sums up episode number 122. Next week, our guest is Bill, who's going to educate us on storage unit auctions, among other things. He has sold all sorts of intriguing and unusual items. Thank you so much for listening and telling your friends about this podcast. I appreciate you. Keep up the great work and remember what Benjamin Franklin said: energy and persistence conquer all things. So keep going. Happy selling, everybody, and I will talk to you next week. Bye for now.